The rain came down in relentless sheets, a cascade of cold droplets turning the world outside into a blurred gray mess. Sarah shivered as she gripped the steering wheel, squinting through the windshield at the barely visible road ahead. The headlights of her car cut through the murk just enough to reveal a sign half buried in overgrown foliage. Blackwood Hotel, 2 miles. Desperation made the decision for her. The storm had turned the roads treacherous, and the nearest town was miles behind. Blackwood Hotel was her only hope of finding shelter for the night. She turned onto the narrow, winding path indicated by the sign, the tires of her car crunching over gravel and fallen leaves. The hotel emerged from the darkness like a specter, its grand structure looming against the stormy sky. Once a symbol of opulence and luxury, the Blackwood Hotel now stood in decay, its windows shattered, and the paint peeling off its once majestic facade. Sarah hesitated at the sight but had little choice. She parked and made a dash for the entrance, her suitcase in hand. The heavy wooden doors groaned as she pushed them open, revealing a vast, dimly lit lobby. Dust motes danced in the air, disturbed by her intrusion. The silence was thick, broken only by the distant rumble of thunder. Sarah called out, her voice echoing in the cavernous space. No response. She approached the front desk, where an old-fashioned bell sat. With a hesitant hand, she rang it. The sound seemed to awaken the hotel. Lights flickered, and for a brief moment, Sarah thought she heard footsteps. A shiver ran down her spine, but she shook it off as nerves. After all, it was just an old building, creaking and settling. She signed the dusty guest book, her name looking stark and fresh against the aged paper. Taking an old brass key from the hook behind the desk, she headed towards the stairs. The carpeted steps felt spongy underfoot, and she noted the disrepair as she ascended to the second floor. Room was at the end of a long hallway, its door ajar. She pushed it open to reveal a room that was surprisingly well preserved. A large canopied bed stood in the center, and heavy curtains framed the window. It was as if time had stopped here, the room untouched by the decay outside. Sarah set her suitcase down and flopped onto the bed, exhaustion overcoming her. She closed her eyes, intending to rest for just a moment, but sleep claimed her swiftly. She awoke to darkness, the storm outside having knocked out the power. Her phone's clock read 3:30 a.m. The room was oppressively silent, the kind of silence that amplifies every tiny sound. Sarah sat up, her senses on high alert. There it was again, the faint sound of footsteps, slow and deliberate, moving down the hallway outside her room. Her heart pounded as she crept to the door, opening it a crack to peer out. The hallway was empty, but the footsteps continued, growing louder. They were coming closer. She shut the door, pressing her back against it as her mind raced. What was she hearing? Who else was here? Then, a whisper. Soft, almost unintelligible, but unmistakably close. Get out. Sarah's breath hitched. Panic surged through her, but she forced herself to think clearly. She had to leave. She grabbed her suitcase and moved toward the window. The fire escape outside offered a way out. As she pushed the window open, she felt a cold breath on her neck, and the whisper came again, louder this time. Get out. Terror drove her. She clambered onto the fire escape and descended quickly, her hands slipping on the wet metal. She hit the ground and ran to her car, not daring to look back. The engine roared to life, and she sped away, her heart racing. As she glanced in the rearview mirror, she saw a figure standing in the entrance of the Blackwood Hotel watching her go. The outline was indistinct, but she could feel its gaze even as the hotel receded into the storm. Sarah never returned to Blackwood. Years later, she learned that the hotel had been abandoned after a series of mysterious disappearances. Guests who stayed there would vanish without a trace, their belongings found undisturbed in their rooms. To this day, she can't shake the feeling that the hotel was more than just a building. It was a presence, waiting in the shadows, forever whispering its dark warning to those who dared to enter.